all kiss all the time on this podcast.
Am I in the wrong Zoom? What happened?
Yeah, I came unprepared.
How y'all doing tonight?
You're the most disturbing Paul Stanley I think I've ever seen.
Good evening, weirdos, and welcome to yet another edition of Livin Cruddy with Cruddy Joe. I am Cruddy Joe, your hard luck monkey, and I am here tonight with the Getty Along gang. We have handsome Jimmy Hansen, the full bug Gino Royd Coffinberry, and our special guest, radio podcast guru, elite assassin for the government, and humanitarian of the year, Chris Czynszak. Good evening, sir.
Quite an intro. I'll try to live up to it. Well, Gino, I haven't talked to you since, God, it's been at least a decade probably as far as in person, right?
Probably the last time talking to you in person was at the end.
It was one of the Hootenanny shows. I do remember that. I was going to show you this. I found this today.
Oh, awesome.
Now, the last time I spoke to you in person, I was waiting tables at the Waffle House in Antioch.
Chris, it's Czynszak, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I always thought it was Czynszak.
A lot of people give me that.
And then we start listening to the podcast. I'm like, he's not saying Czynszak, he's saying Czynszak.
Yeah.
So you've been doing your podcast now, Decibal Geek, for about how long now? Is it 10 years?
It'll be 10 years in April. Yeah. 2011 is when we started.
And now you're up to like about 500 different episodes.
Oh, yeah. Like this week will be 431, I think.
That's quite a haul. That's definitely a haul. And how often do you put them out?
Every week.
Every week. So you're basically don't do anything in your life but that then.
If you ask my wife, she'd probably say yes. It takes a ton of time. And the longer you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah, we've been idiots lately and decided to start doing live streams on Friday night on top of what we do with the podcast. So it's like, it was fun the first couple of weeks. Now it's like, damn, this is starting to feel like work now. So we'll see how long we go with it.
Well, that's not far from what we do, which is we do this, and then on Friday night we run that watch party where we run the movies and we air the video podcast of whatever we did that week. So it's a rush between Monday night to do your recording and then, guerrilla edit down, because we just try to take an hour and turn it into like 20 minutes of just solid content. So that's a lot of editing. And then Friday night we air it, and then, we don't have near the audience that you do, but I think the work is probably similar in that you have to pretty much get into it nonstop.
Friday I do my only fan cam show.
I think Paul Stanley just left the building.
Yeah, dressed up as Peter Criss, of course. It gets a lot more viewers that way.
Well, Peter Criss spoke up and Paul Stanley had to leave. That makes sense.
I like that. Not in the contract.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to happen. Am I supposed to do the whole thing in character, or am I allowed to?
Oh, God.
Okay, so I know Chris from, it's got to be around 2003 or something like that, when we had the Nashville Rock bulletin board online. This was pre-Facebook, pre-MySpace, pre-all that stuff.
Yeah.
Were you part ownership of that, or how did that work?
Well, I eventually became that. When I came on board, I was just wanting to write, and I wasn't in a band at the time. And actually, when I started, I was in a band that was trying to kind of get our lineup in place, and I always have an ulterior motive. And I was like, well, if I start writing for this website, maybe that I can help promote my band that way, which,
right.
And so, got to know Dave and Critter, Kyle, and they were running it at the time, and Jerry Work owned it. But they got burned out pretty quickly after I came on board with what I was doing. So within like a year or two, they were like, well, we're kind of done with it if you want to just take it over. So I took it over. And then after 2 years of trying to do something with the Nashville rock scene, I had enough. And I was like, I'm done. I can't do it no more.
Yeah, it was involved, and there was a lot of action going on there. It wasn't just like nowadays you see a bulletin board that's sitting there, you can't tell the last time somebody posted on it. That was a busy deal, and you had a lot of traffic on there every day.
That forum was like the Wild West. There was a lot of arguments that took place on that board, and I remember you were in the middle of a lot of them.
Oh yeah, well, we were mixing shit up. I remember there was one guy that was super political. There was a Dixon contingency there that hostile towards the Nashville. There was definitely a lot of like metal versus punk stuff going on, which was absurd in and of itself.
Well, I remember a lot of the arguments between Vance from Disarray and Peter from your band.
Yeah, I think Vance is the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I don't remember these guys' names. I barely remember Peter's name.
When it turned political, it got kind of ugly, but I can't imagine if that board was alive today what the political arguments would have been like.
Oh, people were shooting each other.
Yeah. I tried to give it some national attention. I started interviewing some artists that, that were coming into town, and I interviewed Michael Wilton from Queensryche, and I did an audio interview with Corey Corey Glover, and this was kind of like right around the time podcasts were starting, but I wasn't considering it a podcast. But we actually did put it out. Josh Jackson helped me put it out on audio. And so we got a little bit of attention from doing those. And it helped for a little while, but I wish I could still find that audio because that was like 2005, I think.
I don't remember how it fell apart. It wasn't long after that CD that you showed.
Mm-hmm.
People were kind of losing interest, and I don't think that people were jumping over to Facebook was quite happening yet, but it was definitely MySpace. It's a big argument about banned websites versus just MySpace.
Oh yeah, I would have conversations with Kyle because he was getting burnt out because the traffic wasn't getting where he thought it should be, and I wasn't happy with it either. But he was just like, "Oh, it's MySpace is taking all the traffic away," and I remember saying, "Oh, MySpace is a fad; it won't last."
Yeah, it just got swallowed up by the next version.
Yeah,
whatever version is after that. But that was that was a learning thing. Before Nashville Rock, I just moved up from Florida. The only other thing that I had been part of prior to that was Super Suckers board that I was on. That was
hotter than hell.
I started noticing that Decibal Geek was something that I was starting to see all the time.
Oh, wow.
How did that start for you? Was it something you had just kind of were going to dip your feet in the water, or were you like, I'm going full in?
Well, it's funny. It has a KISS connection because I was originally writing a book about Vinnie Vincent at the time, around 2009, 2010. And because there was still there's still mystery around him, but there was a lot at that time because he was still in hiding at the time.
Right.
I used to do writing with Nashville Rock and some other sites, and somebody should write a book about this because there's so many weird rumors about him. And then I had people come. I mentioned it on a fan forum for Vinnie Vincent. Yeah, there was one, and I had some people that had inside information, stalkers, that were sending me information. So I started putting a book together. And around that time, I'd started doing an office job, and I got an iPod for the office. And that's when I discovered podcasts. And I was listening to a lot of the comedy podcasts, like Maron's podcast, Corolla's podcast, and shows like that, and the interview shows. And I was like, well, I used to do interviews for Nashville Rock. That was fun. And then I was doing phone interviews with people for the Vinnie Vincent book at that time. And I had one of those little Olympus digital recorders that you could run through your phone, like a landline.
Right.
And I was recording interviews for that I would transcribe later for the book. I actually wound up losing everything in a hard drive crash that I had in the computer, but I still had a bunch of the interviews that were on the digital recorder. So I was like, well, I could maybe start a podcast and use these. So that was the impetus to start one, was to get those interviews out because I wanted people to hear the stories. But then once I got rolling on it, I just kept going with it.
So that mutated into
Yeah, the first couple episodes were not about Vinnie Vincent. I wanted to wait a little bit, so I could jump from 5 listeners to 20. And but it was funny once the Vinnie Vincent ones came out, I realized how there was a lot of people wanting to know information about this guy. Blabbermouth and some of these other sites were picking up on it. And I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool. You can actually get some attention, and the numbers just shot through the roof. But I hated doing it on my own. I was still doing it on my own at that time, and then my co-host came on board I think 2 or 3 episodes after that.
Right. So the whole Vinnie Vincent thing, I remember you talked a lot about Vinnie Vincent at the time, and everybody knows who Vinnie Vincent is, but in Nashville, people know that he at one point lived here, and there's always some tongue-in-cheek joke about Vinnie Vincent that I always missed it. I don't know what. Granted, he was the strange bird that was in the band for a brief period, but people continue to talk about him well after he was no longer on the music scene. For anybody that doesn't know what's going on there, what was the backstory, or just some of it? And I know you covered this extensively, so it's not.
Well, he replaced Ace Frehley and KISS.
What was the allure of him that continued beyond that?
Well, the last time people had really heard from him around that time was the mid-90s, and he was doing KISS conventions, and he did them around the time of the reunion, and he was being real complimentary of Gene and Paul because I think he was trying to get latched on, thinking he was going to get back in the band for some weird reason. And he had a EP that he was promoting. After that, he started taking pre-orders for a box set of cassettes, no less. And he took a lot of orders for it, and he never delivered on it, and he just went into hiding completely. He went completely off the grid. No one knew where he was, what he was up to. And then, of course, there was all kinds of rumors going around that he had a sex change, that all kinds of crazy, wacky stories about, what he had been doing. Some people said he was living in Nashville writing music for country artists and all this stuff. And there was just a lot of bizarre behavior behind the scenes. Yeah, there was just a lot of interest in, what's he up to? He just disappeared. And that was when I started working on the book, and I started learning stuff. And it turned out he lived like 10 minutes away from me. I lived out in Laverne, and he lived in Smyrna. It was just a weird, funny coincidence. I mean, if you listen to all the episodes we did on him, it's funny. It starts out with me interviewing people that used to work with him that basically he ripped off. He had a really shady reputation. I mean, he forms Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and he gets fired from his own band. You have to really screw up to do that, you know. For those that don't know, Vinnie Vincent Invasion wound up to become Slaughter after he was let go. And but yeah, a lot of shady business dealings, and just about everything I dug up on him was negative. But at the same time, I started getting into his music at the time a little bit, because I was always into the shredding guitar players and stuff. I love Paul Gilbert and Jason Becker and all that stuff. But I never viewed him as that, and I got into Kiss right after he was in the band, so I didn't pick up on him until way later. But then I started respecting his music and his songwriting. So it's like I became a fan, but I wasn't a fan of him as a human. But I was like, for the longest time, I was like, oh, he's misunderstood. But then as history proved out, once he came out of hiding in 2018, and then I had my own interaction with him, you know, we got to finally interview him. Then I tried to get him to be a guest with my expo that I do every year called Rockin' Pod, and he agreed. And then I learned really quickly that all the stories about don't do business with Vinnie Vincent are absolutely correct. It was a clusterfuck, and yeah, he's not a good person. I had phone calls from people related to Vinnie Vincent Invasion, other musicians that had worked with him, saying, welcome to the club. He's back around still doing like these little shows at SIR with like 20 people and charging $500 a ticket. That's like his only income now, from what I've heard.
I wasn't aware of what was going on with him, other than he was a mysterious character portraying himself as a sympathetic character who had gotten screwed over by Kiss. The media was screwing him over, and his fans were not treating him right or whatever. And then I saw a portion of what was going on with your event and the details that you led into it there. And then I'm like, okay, so the picture becomes a little clearer here, that he's basically one of these take the money and run types, or just simply can't deliver on what he's promised. And, you know, and then you start seeing the videos of him at whatever event that was. You're like, okay, this guy, his life is upside down. From that point on, you're standing with how you felt with him at the time that you were mad at him. Nothing has changed since then. Or
no, I'll still tell people, because I have friends that are still fans of his, and I'd like to, like, don't let my experience ruin your fandom, because like I was still a fan when a lot of people had told me all these negative things about him, you know, and I was like, I had a personal issue with him and we had a falling out, but that doesn't mean you have to hate him now. But I tell anyone who's like thinking of doing anything on a business level with him, like, you're better off not doing it. I don't think he's changed at all.
Well, there's a lot of bands that have shitheads in them that you wouldn't want to try to befriend, but you can still love their music. That's probably the bulk of those bands. I went back to look through the times that I had seen Kiss, and I wanted to kind of touch base with who was in the band when I saw them. You know, I was a large Kiss fan back in the day, you know, especially during the original lineup period, but I didn't get to see them at that point. First time I saw them, I double-checked this, was, I believe, 82 West Palm Beach Auditorium, when they were touring with the Plasmatics, and that was indeed a tour that Vinnie Vincent played on.
Yeah.
I had remembered that in my mind, it was Vinnie Vincent, but I'd also seen Vinnie Vincent Invasion open for Alice Cooper. So it'd been so long, I'm like, am I mixing these two up? It was one of the other guys, the Kulik guys, playing with Kiss at the time, but no. I remember they had a shredder. The guy was much more of an involved player than Ace was. Ace was definitely like the poor man's Jimmy Page, you know, rock riffs that are single note bends where, you know, he's a shredder, and it was a different vibe.
So you saw him on the Creatures of the Night tour. That was with the Tank stage. And
yeah.
Was it I never got to see it. So like, was it as poorly attended as what I've heard? I heard that tour did not do well.
Ironically, with the thing that I checked, but it was a calendar of Kiss shows, and it gave the capacity and the attendance. And the attendance at this show was probably at about 60% of the venue, which was less than 10,000. Kiss was in a downward.
Oh, yeah.
I Was Made for Loving You came out. That pissed off everybody.
That's what I've heard.
A lot of people jumped ship. Of course, Kiss became this fucking super divisive group. I mean, it's never more apparent than now, where it's like you either love those guys or you absolutely have to fucking destroy them. I don't get that. I love the old Kiss. They'll always be a part of my DNA going back to the story. And I don't really give a shit whether any of those guys are assholes or whether they're the greatest guys. I still love that music. And you know it's a business.
Yeah, well, I don't buy records because the band are a bunch of nice guys. I don't give a shit what they're like.
Yes, since you guys are kind of talking about Kiss now, this might open a can of worms, but it must must have been bittersweet when the original lineup came back together. They all had the makeup on, but then you have to put up with Psycho Circus. Does that make it a bittersweet experience? Oh, great, they're all back together. Oh, wait, this is shit.
Oh, dude, I was so excited for that record. I couldn't wait. I was like, the original lineup's going to put a record out. This is awesome. And I started hearing the rumors before it even came out. We're hearing that Ace and Peter hardly even play on this record. And I was like, well, that's bad enough. But they had a lot of albums where those guys didn't play and other people played, and they were still good albums. And then it came out, and I listened to the first song, the title track. I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. And then everything else was just a shit show. It was one of the most disappointing records I've ever listened to. I rate it lower than Music from the Elder. It's my least favorite Kiss album. That's really saying something. It's a whole record filled with, aren't we great? We are one. It's about the fans and us. But you're lying to us, telling us it's the original guys. Incredibly dishonest record, and it's just bad. I may be alone in my thought on this, but I just think it's a terrible record.
I didn't like it either.
That Peter Criss ballad, that might be the worst thing the band's ever done. No offense, Joe.
Oh, yeah. That was dropped on me, by the way. It was like, hey, Gene wants us to put on makeup for the podcast on Monday. But, dramatic pause, you have to be Peter Criss.
He said nobody wants to be Peter Criss, not even Peter Criss.
Exactly. Well, that's what my girlfriend said. It's funny. She helps me with this makeup, and I reach out to touch her, and she's like, no, not when you're Peter Criss. I'm still blown away that the Vinnie Vincent Invasion became Slaughter. I had no idea.
Well, they kind of did. I mean, like, Mark Slaughter was the singer of the Invasion, and Dana Strum was the bassist, and Bobby Rock left the band, and he joined Nelson, and I know way too much about this stuff.
I was working at the Green Hills Theater, and one of the concessionists waved me over. I came over there, what's up? He goes, Joe, it's Mark Slaughter in my line. And I was like, yeah, so it is. He's like, well, why isn't anyone acknowledging him? I'm like, well, two reasons. One, they don't recognize it's Mark Slaughter, and two, it's Mark Slaughter. Who cares?
Oh. I like Mark's a good guy, but fair enough.
I did a booth at the Full Moon one year. Mark Slaughter was right across from us. He was a nice guy. He had a lot of people. He had more people than Linnea Quigley did. I mean, there's rock and roll people left in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And Nashville's got a lot of them. This town's really changed a lot since the back in the day.
Being in a podcast that kind of focuses on metal and hard rock, do you feel confined in Nashville, which obviously is not only country, but like really horrible commercialized Nashville country? Does that make you feel imprisoned by shit?
No, not really. I mean, honestly, for what we do, you know, we cover a lot of the bands from the 80s and stuff, and a lot of those guys moved out here. So as far as getting interviews, it's a great place to be. And, you know, for the convention that I put on, it's easy to get guests because a lot of them live here. The country thing for Nashville, I can ignore it. It doesn't really affect me anymore. But growing up, you couldn't get away from it here. Oh, it was terrible. There's so many members of bands that I grew up listening to that moved here. So it's been advantageous to be here. I'd rather be here than Los Angeles to do my show, to be honest with you.
Well, I meant more from a perspective of a guy who likes music, listens to the radio and stuff. I mean, I don't even have a problem with country music. It's just the Nashville brand of country music I don't like.
Oh, I just don't listen to it. I never listen to radio anymore.
Who would have thought, you know, at some point the radio would just fall to the wayside? I mean, it used to be the center of the universe.
With so many options now, I mean, once I got a car that I could plug an aux cord into my phone, I didn't need radio anymore. I just listen to that. My radio station is my playlist on my phone now.
And it's all Psycho Circus.
Oh, yeah, all the time. I call it the suicide soundtrack.
Running a popular podcast and being I hate to say know-it-all on hard rock and metal music, do you feel you have to be somewhat of an elitist as far as stuff you listen to? People bring up, hey, have you heard the new AC/DC? It's like, no, I only listen to stuff no one's ever heard of before.
Oh, no. I'm not a hipster when it comes to music. Although I will say, you know, after so many years of being force-fed singles from artists and stuff through the radio, I'm definitely not a singles guy. I look for album tracks more of the time, but like if somebody wants to listen to, you know, a regular popular band, I don't begrudge them that. The only thing that annoys me is people that are satisfied with the 50 songs they get on the radio. It's like there's so much more out there. You should get into more stuff, but I don't look down my nose on anybody.
Yeah, both of these jokers are hipsters.
Well, I've known Gino a long time. He's a total hipster.
Ironically, given where this started, where we knew each other initially, I think we probably have way more in common in what our likes are.
Oh, yeah. Because of some of your stuff on that board back in the day, I was kind of a naive fan as far as punk went. I'm certainly not a know-it-all when it comes to it now, but there were some bands that you turned me on to back in the day. When I was growing up, the Ramones, I didn't give them a second thought. I was into shredding and high production value and all that stuff. I just didn't even think about the Ramones. Now they're one of my top 5 bands, and I absolutely love them. Or bands like The Damned. I like stuff like that. that. And that's one thing my show has done a lot is honestly, it's opened my ears to a whole lot of stuff I never would have even thought about listening to.
Side by side, enough time has gone by to where rock and roll has gone out of the forefront of kids that were our age then. I don't know what the fuck they listen to now.
Post Malone. That's what my teenager liked.
Post Malone, whatever that is.
I don't mind the couple of tracks he did with Ozzy.
I saw him doing a thing where he was singing a bunch of Nirvana songs. I was surprised that he could sing and play guitar. I'm like, okay, so this guy can do that. I listened to one of his regular tracks. I'm like, oh, that's just terrible.
His music is definitely current stuff, which I'm not into, but I've seen him on interviews and stuff, and he's a big metalhead. He grew up listening to a lot of the same stuff we do. But it's just like translate that to your music, man.
Maybe you have your pulse on whatever makes money at the time, but I just don't know how you could love a certain kind of thing and then be so the opposite in what you're doing. I guess the original point that I was trying to make was that little niche of stuff that we used to bicker about back in the day. All of it was so similar compared to the shit that people listen to now.
Yeah, back then it was like, how can you be a Cinderella fan, but you don't like the Bullet Boys? I mean, come on. They're so different.
If somebody was saying, I like Poison versus the guy that says, I like the Sex Pistols, it's like, wait a second, it's the same fucking riff.
Yeah, both sloppily played, too.
Nowadays, Gino just wants to talk about Blink-182 and Green Day.
Mm-hmm. He loves them.
Wow. You've changed, man.
That 90s shit makes me want to pull my hair out.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being like a punk purist when all that stuff was coming out. That must have drove you crazy.
I came up listening to shit like AC/DC and Kiss. I adapted my playing music side into the punk stuff because it's more or less what I was capable of doing. I wasn't able to go out and join a hair band. I just, you got to have a certain look, certain vibe. But I did like a lot of that shit. But then the punk stuff that I fell in love with mutated so strangely in the 90s. There's some stuff in there. I mean, I like the rock and stuff, Turbo Negro, the Super Sucker, stuff like that. But I do not like the shit that was on the radio.
One thing that makes me sad, I got into the Ramones probably around 2007 or 8 because I saw the End of the Century documentary about them. They bring up a part in that that's just so heartbreaking because they slugged it out. They get to the 90s and suddenly Green Day and bands and Rancid and bands like that are taking over the fucking world, and they're all saying the Ramones are our biggest influence, and the poor Ramones are having to play to 25 people in a small club.
And they all had hepatitis.
Well, that's true.
They all drank that New York City, the Forest Hills water, all guys.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Died when they were 40.
So are you saying if you went to a Ramones concert, then you're immune from getting COVID?
Probably.
Jimmy's a COVID denier anyway.
Yeah, that's right. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. I'm telling you.
I saw him with his hoax mask on today.
It's a hoax.
Speaking of hair bands, is there any band or genre of music that you think is disparaged or shit upon that maybe deserves another day in court or maybe should not be seen in such a bad light?
When we moved from hair metal into grunge, there were a lot of hard rock bands that definitely got swept under the rug that had good material coming out in the early 90s. But because now it's not quote unquote cool anymore, it didn't sell and it got no attention. If you look from like 91 to 93, there's a lot of hard rock bands that did great material. Either they were new bands or they were basically hair bands trying to adapt to the times, where sometimes they fell flat on their faces and it was terrible, but there were some that actually put out quality material. So yeah, I would say early 90s hard rock kind of got unfairly ignored.
Jimmy is fucking mugging so hard here.
I'm trying to look away because it's killing my concentration.
Look over at that motherfucker.
You made me put on makeup.
You loved every goddamn second of it. You know it.
But hard enough, I can't stop staring at myself, and then you make me put on makeup. Plus, I'm trying to fix it on the fly.
I'm listening to Chris, and then I look over, and he's like, look at me. Look at me.
He's like that without makeup.
Now we need Jimmy to say, woo!
Just as long as I don't have to sing Beth. So do you own the Kiss comic book? Inked in their own blood?
Nah. I like the music and I like books on them and stuff, but like I never got into all the kiddie stuff that they did. The toys and the comic book. I don't care anything about that stuff. Just not for me.
Kiss Army?
Was I part of the Kiss Army?
Are you? Were you?
Never officially.
Are you?
I do try to get a veterans discount by saying I was a member of the Kiss Army, but it never worked.
Stolen valor.
I totally filled that thing out, man. Like Destroyer era. Fucking having my mom help me send that shit in. You don't understand.
They might need me.
So does that mean you also don't like Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park?
That's a fine piece of filmmaking right there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, do you prefer that or Attack of the Phantoms?
Attack of the Phantoms is better just because they use the solo album's music instead of the 70s porn music in it.
Yeah, Attack of the Phantoms has Shandy in it, doesn't it?
No, that was before Shandy came out. It does have the acoustic version of Beth, though.
Ugh.
Band I was in back in the 80s, one of the guys got a hold of a track that was just the music for Beth. And Boomer put on a Peter Criss mask and sat on the head stage and sang the verse to Beth with the Peter Criss mask, and it was crazy. This was back before cell phones. Every motherfucker in the room, 75 people in this room, got the lighters going, and it was like being at a mini Kiss concert. It was a classic Kiss moment.
Oh, yeah! All right, then, listen.
Okay, true or false? They say that the road's no place to start a family.
I guess I'd say true because that is how the lyric goes in the Journey song.
That it is true because Steve Perry said it.
How do you seg from an entire evening of Kiss into Journey?
All right, here's the most important question. Is the Van Halen song The Full Bug? That's a decent song, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that one.
Fuck you, Gino.
You're digging fucking these deep tracks off Diver Down with a guy who runs a fucking podcast.
It's a good segue into the last segment.
There's been an ongoing debate as to whether anybody should know the lyrics to The Full Bug, and that being on, to me, their worst fucking record.
I don't know the lyrics to it. I don't think it's a bad song. I don't care much for that record, though.
I technically don't think it's a bad song either. On a record filled with bad songs, it's probably one of the better ones, but I can't go dig up Diver Down and fucking listen to that record anyway. If I have to hear Pretty Woman, I'm done.
Yeah, not a fan of that one.
And I love Van Halen, but no to that record.
Even Eddie hated doing that record.
Did you ever work at the Tower Records in Nashville?
Shopped there a lot, but I never worked there.
And we're striking out.
You guys would tell me if I look like a fucking juggalo, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, totally.
You look like a juggalo.
You look like a juggalo.
Juggalos before juggalos, right?
I think those are juggalettes.
Okay. Jimmy's freezing up, as always, because
I can't look at this guy. You're killing me. I did not expect to be talking to the most deranged version of Kiss I've ever seen.
I didn't either. I found out about this like at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
we have a couple songs. I'll recite some lyrics. You tell me the name of the band, name of the song, and what the following lyric is, if you're up for that.
Yeah, we'll do it. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it. You're the rock and roll.
I want to definitely hear the music trivia with them. I have a very high bar.
Well, the good news is that everybody fucks this up. Nobody can. And, we offer you the support of our wonderful lifeline, Cruddy Joe and Handsome Jimmy, who's doing his Madonna mole now. You've ruined your look. I can no longer look at you.
Oh, that ruined it.
That ruined it.
He's now Madge Stanley.
Okay, now if I recite this and you're like, shit, I can't get that. I don't know that. You have lifelines. You can ask Jimmy, or you can ask Joe, or you can text somebody, or you can do whatever. The only thing you can't do is go on Google or ask me.
Okay.
Somebody that knows rock and roll probably should know these songs.
No pressure.
What have I left out, Jimmy? What did I forget?
No, you're perfect. You're doing a fantastic job.
And these guys will participate as lifelines, and they're not going to give us any flack if you ask them to be the lifeline or try to pawn it off on the other guy because they act like they don't know. All right.
First, will make it difficult by telling you the lyrics in the most robotic voice possible.
Well, trust me, if I was to try to sing this, we'd really be in trouble. I'll say 3 lines. You tell me the 4th line. Tell me the name of the song, name of the band. The lyrics are, so much for the golden future, I can't even start. I've had every promise broken. There's anger in my heart. You don't know what it's like. You don't have a clue. What's the next line? What's the name of the band? What's the name of the song?
All right, Jimmy, help me out.
It's Judas Priest. Judas Priest.
What's the name of the song?
Something about fighting for your right to party or something. What is it? Breaking the law.
Yeah.
So much for the golden future. I can't even start. I've had every promise broken. There's anger in my heart. You don't know what it's like. You don't have a clue. What's the next line?
God. Someday you'll find yourself doing the same thing too.
Close enough.
Okay.
Yay!
Breaking the law. Breaking the law.
That's the point with a lifeline. Let's move on to the second song. This one is probably the hardest.
That's what she said.
Baby, I got my eye on you because you do all the things I want you to. Stop your crying and dry your tear. What's the next line? Band and song.
Damn. The way you read it is so hard to turn it into a song.
Can you try it in a French accent?
All right, Cruddy Joe.
Long skinny bop all night and day.
No. But what about you, Jimmy?
Jimmy's not home right now. I don't know anything.
Struck out on that one. That was, baby, I got my eye on you because you do all the things I want you to. Stop your crying and dry your tears. I ain't that wet behind the ears. That's beating around the bush, AC/DC.
Yeah. No, there's no way I'd get that.
Of course.
No, I know the song, but I don't have the lyrics memorized to that one.
All right.
Too much pressure.
Okay, so this is the last one. This is an easier one. The lyrics are, come on, babe, on the roundabout, ride on the merry-go-round. We all know what your name is.
So you better lay your money down. Led Zeppelin, Livin', Lovin', Made.
Woo!
It is Livin', Lovin' May. You got 2 or 3.
Good job.
Yes,
You win an Arby's gift certificate.
Now I'm moving on to the movie quote. Rules are the same. You can reach out to one of these 2 clowns. I think Jimmy is distracted by the mirror.
Again.
The first movie quote is, Nobody trusts anybody now, and we're all very tired. There's nothing more I can do. Just wait. Stress on the first part of that. Nobody trusts anybody now, and we're all very tired. There's nothing more I can do. Just wait.
Joe.
The Thing, Kurt Russell.
You got it. That was McCready from The Thing. Well, I saved the most difficult one for the last one. Here is the quote. A slightly more obscure quote, but it's a great quote. Mister, I love the way you wear that hat.
I'll have to go to Jimmy. I don't know.
Mommy says I'm not allowed to watch movies.
All right, Joe, you know?
Mister, I love the way you wear that hat. You don't know nothing, is what the guy says back to him.
Oh, yeah. That'll help.
House of a Thousand Corpses.
It was Deliverance at the beginning when Ned Beatty's talking to the old man.
I don't watch them. They're incest movies.
Yeah. Jeez.
We want to go ahead and try the bonus one, or we want to move on?
Well, we can do the bonus one. Why not?
Okay, here's the bonus. You might be able to get this one. The quote is, insufficient data at the moment, Starchild.
Guess meets the Phantom of the Park. It's Ace Frehley's line.
You got it. You made up.
Of course, I know that one.
Can you do a Werner Herzog impersonation for us?
This is the place we will find Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster.
That was great.
Was it?
4 points.
Oh, yeah.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Excellent.
We do a thing called Mad Lib. Joe's a writer, and he writes these Mad Lib style stories, but he's depending on you for input to round out the story. So I'll ask you some word types, then I'll read the story back with the words that you have provided.
Okay.
I need an outdated synonym for cool.
Radical.
There you go.
A body part.
Ear.
A crude synonym for dead.
Slaughtered.
Slaughtered. A synonym for friend, plural.
Homies.
A crude synonym for the word awful.
It's like leading the witness.
Disgusting.
A name of a city.
Toronto.
Okay, type of house.
That's for Nashville. Tiny house.
Tiny house.
Mm.
Nobody's used tiny house before. A type of fluid.
Oil.
A member of KISS.
Vinnie Vincent.
Perfect.
It's got a V.
Got 2 of them.
Yeah, you're asking the guy with brain damage here.
Well, you're
You
Peter.
gotta
Chris.
stop using that as an
By
excuse.
the end of this show, we'll all have brain damage. So. All
I
right.
think we all came into this show with brain damage.
All right.
We
So
cured your brain damage.
tonight's story is Chris joins the band. It's around 1995, and Chris is at an NSYNC concert. Immersed in the mosh pit, Chris being a radical guy, he has already scored 2 phone numbers and 3 friendship bracelets, despite everybody being confused as to who this Gene Simmons guy was that Chris was dressed up as. Sadly, just as NSYNC was breaking into I Want It That Way, one of Chris's favorite songs, the lead singer suddenly clutched his chest and fell off the stage directly onto his ear. The singer was immediately pronounced slaughtered. Much to their chagrin, everybody thought the show would be canceled. Fortunately, Chris was recognized as a #1 NSYNC fan, and he was dragged, albeit begrudgingly, on stage. Chris was very scared, but he didn't want to disappoint his newfound homies. As the music started back up, Chris was shocked to realize not only did he know all the words, but he knew the choreography too, falling immediately in step with the rest of the band. It was difficult being in KISS boots, but Chris was a trooper, and he made it work. Then, just as the song started to end, it suddenly made an unexpected seg into Led Zeppelin's Livin' Lovin' May. What are the odds? Unfortunately, the juxtaposition between songs was so disgusting that it ruptured the Earth's surface straight down to the core, releasing all the horrific demons spawning from Toronto. Several Hollow Earthers were also released, but fortunately they were immediately incinerated by the spewing hot magma. Immediately the demons took to the sky to confront the evil alien overlords unleashed by Freeman Williams. Instead of fighting, the 2 factions became fast friends and joined forces to more effectively enslave the planet. Jimmy's my hero. Being a hero, Chris borrowed Handsome Jimmy's goat boat and flew into the sky to confront said demons. Surprisingly, the demons were quite
Amenable.
fucking these tongue twisters, man. To Chris's request to the end of the enslavement of Earth, but Chris wasn't specific about the means for ending said slavery. The demons simply annihilated every living being on the planet. Relatively despondent for having killed everything and everyone, Chris went back to his tiny house, drank a gallon of oil in his Vinnie Vincent underoos while listening to Every Rose Has a Thorn on infinite repeat. The end.
What a terrible story.
Wow.
Oh, God. I'm going to be afraid to sleep tonight after hearing that.
Problem is,
I'm afraid to be awake.
well, now you have your official story. You can put it in book form, and we can put that out on Books on Tape.
That's right.
I think I'll pass on that, but it was creative.
Space.
Yeah, you say it's terrible, boy. You're the one who did all that stuff. You're the one who destroyed Earth.
I don't know how you figured out I wear Vinnie Vincent underoos, but you figured it out.
Jimmy told me.
Just assume.
What the fuck happened to Jimmy's face? Poor Star Child is now
Yeah.
Smudge Child.
Jimmy said he met you guys on Grindr and he saw your underwear.
You have to take a screenshot of Jimmy's face and put it up on and make a meme out of it. It says 2020's been hard on all of us, Paul Stanley.
Paul Stanley has melted.
There's the picture I was using to get the makeup.
It's a family show, for fuck's sake.
What, the Manson
All right.
family?
We got to do Jimmy's Cruddy Cuisine real quick.
Did I make anything?
You made a fucking mess out of your face.
Look at anymore.
He is definitely like some kind of French fucking mime who got his ass beat on the streets of New York. Tell us about our Cruddy Cuisine. We have a guest that we're holding up, man.
What did I make? I didn't even make anything this week.
I know. I was supposed to get some cookies, man.
Yeah, I didn't make cookies. They all yelled at me that I make too many cookies. The
You don't
fuck?
make any
No
cookies.
such thing. Too many cookies.
I agree with Joe, man. I made chili.
All right, there we go. Gino's Cruddy Cuisine. What'd you do for the chili? How'd you make it with your own damn hands?
Well, I bought canned tomato sauce, turkey breast meat, and some chili powder, cumin, and cayenne pepper.
Peanut butter.
Some kidney beans.
So Winslow and Beef had competition for gas, huh? Awesome. And that was Gino's Cruddy Cuisine.
Do you have any stuff that you want to promote? You want to tell everybody how to access the Decibal Geek podcast? Anything you got going on?
Yeah, no, Decibel Geek's available on iTunes, all the podcast outlets and stuff, and check that out. We do a show every week. We started doing the live stream on Fridays. This Friday should be interesting. We got David Ellison from Megadeth coming on, so we're kind of excited to have
nice.
him on. So that should be fun. We do a rock trivia game at the end of the show, so he's going to take me on in rock trivia, so that should be fun.
Oh, cool. Now, how does that work?
My co-host does it, and whatever guest we have goes against me, and it's like multiple choice answers.
So you're basically like Nashville's Eddie Trunk, or is that a...
Nah, I'm not friends with everybody like Eddie Trunk is, but
Well, Eddie Trunk doesn't have a bad gig, you know what I mean?
no, he's got the gig all of us want. Yeah, but if you really want to get drunk, do a drinking game where you take a shot every time he says I, me, or my friend.
Yeah, that sounds like me on this podcast, though. So
All right, well, that's all we got for tonight, Weirdest. I want to thank, of course, my partners in crime, the Getty Along Gang. We have Mugging Jimmy Hansen and the brains behind everything Cruddy Joe, Gina Roy Coffenberry. And I want to especially thank our guest tonight, Mr. Chris Czynszak. Go check him out on the Decibel Geek podcast and on X Hamster under the Czynszak Invasion. At any rate, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for wasting time with us tonight.
Thank you, guys. It's been strange and morbid, but fun.
Thank you, brother.
Good night to Tree and Hensley. See you all next week, Meadows family. Cheese up and hose down while you motherfuckers bounce to this.